passe super, l'artiste, super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
Hello and welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour. It's crunch time in the Champions League, so we have all the previews you will need for the quarterfinal matchups on the men's side and the women's side. So we'll be bringing you two separate podcasts with some exciting interviews. It's Alex Kiglash here and Chris O'Reilly's with me. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm good, Alex. I'm good. I can hear the strains of New Orleans in your voice from here. How brave of you to join us here for some Champions League podcasting when you've had the weekend you've had behind you.
Yeah, New Orleans is a good place. Good food, good music. And it's a perfect time when there's like a bit of break in the handball, so I don't have to focus completely on handball and can take a weekend to myself, you know, as dedicated as I am to this sport and this podcast. But yeah, New Orleans is a great place. It's my second time here, and each time it just has the wildest energy, which just fits my whole persona. I love shrimp, I love brass music, and I love getting drunk. So it's been a good weekend.
Very nice. Well, while I was letting you recover and get ready for this, I took the liberty of doing some interviews for the podcast. So coming up on today's Men's Champions League preview, we have Rémi Desbonnet from Montpellier. Montpellier, born and bred, but in his first Champions League quarterfinal in his career. So we spoke about that and also his history with the club, him also trying to get into the France national team for the Olympics this summer, which would be massive, as is the case with Anna Gross, who we spoke to on the women's podcast, and that's coming out on Thursday. And Anna, the Jura and Slovenia player to look forward to later in the week. But before we hear from Rémi, we'll have a quick look at the quarterfinal stage. We can make some predictions and afterwards, but I'd want to ask you before we dive into the chat with Rémi, which of our four quarterfinals are you most looking forward to, Alex?
Oh, it's a tough one. There's glamour all around, and one thing that I've been looking into and just seeing some of these big teams hit such top form in the latter stage of the season. It feels like the pros who are just used to being at this stage, the likes of Kielce, the likes of Magdeburg, the likes of Veszprem and Barcelona, all really kind of hitting their stride. And you wouldn't have said that these, at the middle stage of the groups, you wouldn't have said that these matchups were all so equal, but they really are. But, the absolute stand-up one has to be last year's final, the repeat of last year's final, which is Kielce versus Magdeburg. You can't beat that as a matchup. Two absolutely insanely informed teams. We've just watched Magdeburg just take liberty with the German handball world over the last couple of weeks, just doing whatever they want, destroying everyone in their path, winning the German Cup at a saunter, really, striding past Füchse Berlin, just destroying Melsungen, then comfortably pushing Flensburg to the side. And, they are just must-see TV right now. And on the other side, you're getting Kielce, who are may have flown under the radar this season a little bit due to their injury issues. But this is a team that's built to win the Champions League. It's the same team that we thought looked unstoppable last year. They really, and until the very last seconds of the final, they did look unstoppable. So that's my matchup of the quarterfinals, I think. But they all looked so tasty.
They do, and I think we maybe even before we we go into Remy, we can predict a couple of these, because you've wet my whistle with the idea of talking about Kielce Magdeburg. It's Kielce Magdeburg. Kielce at home for the first leg. Montpellier Kiel. Montpellier at home for the first leg. Veszprém Aalborg with Veszprém at home for the first leg, and Paris Saint-Germain against Barca. Less said about the football version of that quarterfinal, the better, right, Alex? PSG at home for the first leg there. But yeah, let's dive into a little bit more of Kielce Magdeburg. Last week, anyone who listened to the Morning Club episode we put out with Sasha, we made it public for everyone. I asked them a topic or a question based on a vibe I was getting from people, that they were maybe getting a little bit bored of this Magdeburg team for being too good, which I found a bit of a ludicrous idea. They haven't been dominating the sport for 15 years. But as you said, they've kind of made the German handball scene their own, particularly over the last few months. It's going to be a very different test against Kielce. Kielce are not a German league team. Kielce are Kielce, and they know how to drag out results from who knows where. They love quarterfinals. They love being the underdogs of quarterfinals. And I can't see this being a one-sided game at all. This for me is going down to the final 5 minutes of the second leg. Do you see it any other way?
I want to believe that, but just having watched what Magdeburg do, the machine that Benner Wiegert has built, it's really hard to look past like Magdeburg just being there and just wearing down this Kielce team. Again, we do say like Kielce are past their injury troubles, but not totally. They're still missing Simon Sitschko on left back, which I think is a big loss. It reduces their ability in that backcourt. It puts a lot of pressure on Alex Dushabayev and Danny Dushabayev. And I think we've all been impressed with Danny Dushabayev's kind of progress over the last couple of years. And, in the crunch time games last year in the Champions League, it was Danny Dushabayev who really did come up for the big moments as well. But losing a player who I've called before the best left back in the world is not something to just sniff at. And, the injuries to their line players, like, Karlek, I'm sure he'll play all the time, but the man is beaten up. You can tell by just watching him play that he is running put together with tape and hot spray and cold spray and whatever painkillers are legal in Poland. So there's a wear and tear. And weirdly enough, for Magdeburg, that's one of the, I think, benefits that they have. They're so tough. Like, physically, this Magdeburg team is made up of just players who, they've grown up being beaten up. They're just fighters. So their bodies are pretty much capable of standing game on game on game. Capable of standing the like one-on-ones that they'll constantly do to try get those easier goals, to earn those penalties. And, looking at that team, it's just at full strength, it's flowing, and full strength without Nicola Portner. I just want to get back to the fact that it was meth that he tested positive for. Can we just revert to that for a second?
I don't know what we can say, Alex. I think we have to wait for some final answers to come out there before. But we do have an anti-doping officer who's a listener of the podcast, so maybe we can get in touch with him and he can give us some insight when that comes out. But connected to that loosely, this is also maybe a bit of an audition for Andy Wolf, who has been linked in the last week with a move to Magdeburg, maybe expedited by this Portner news. Who knows? But that, for me, I think is one of the big wild cards in this, is that Andy Wolf can turn 2 games in that. Nevertheless, though, I'm going with Magdeburg for this.
going back to just the Sportner thing, it reminds me of the marathon runners in the first Olympics, which you're very familiar with, Chris. Just the ones that
strychnine
were so hopped up on drugs
and alcohol. Yeah, yeah.
That, what was it? One of them fell over and had to be carried over the line while he was kicking his legs.
Yeah.
Is that not part of
one of the guys? This is the St. Louis Marathon, 1904, and one of them took a nap and still finished in fourth. But yeah, thankfully, strychnine, not a common sports announcer these days. And on that note, I think it's a good time to go into our interview with Rémi Desbonnet from Montpellier and France. We'll hear what he has to say about this week's quarterfinal, the final season of Patrice Canaille as coach of Montpellier, and what has been a big year for him already. Rémi, thanks so much for joining on a Monday of a Champions League quarterfinal week. What's the mood in the Montpellier camp at the moment?
I think that we are in a perfect mood. We have a few days to prepare this game. We know that FDI Stadium will be completely full on Wednesday, so we are hoping that our crowd will be hot like us, and that we will be good.
And you're a Montpellier boy, born and raised, right? And you've had a long history with the club growing up, so you must know really how special these big Champions League occasions are for the handball community in Montpellier.
Yeah, I was in the first title of Montpellier in the Champions League in 2003. Yes, nice. And it was crazy atmosphere, and I grew up with all these big events one time a year, like quarterfinal, always crazy scenarios, like at the time against Mechkov, Brest. Yeah. No, not Meshkov, Brest.
Medvedi. Yes.
Chekov Medvedi. That tough lose at the 7 meter at the end. So yes, it's always a special moment for the club and for the crowd here in Montpellier. And mostly this year, with the last year of our coach Patrice Canaille, we hope to give him a great present for his last Champions League game at home.
Is it something that you notice on the streets or when talking to people close to the club when you have these big occasions coming up? Are people a bit more excited or nervous or paying more attention?
Yeah, it's like a little bit electric around the club and around the FDI Stadium. We know that there is no ticket anymore since 10 days, I think. Nice. I think it's a little bit crazy. Everyone wants to be here and wants to push and see us in Cologne this year. So great moment for us as a player.
You mentioned Patrice Canaille in his last season as coach. 24 years as the coach of the club. What age were you when you started playing with Montpellier?
I started to play in Montpellier when I was 8. So I'm 32 now.
So he's been there the entire time, basically.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
Wow.
When I grew up, it was like the objective, you know. You knew that if one day Patrice Canaille know your name, you will be not too bad at handball normally.
That's incredible. What comes to your mind when you think of him and the club? Because I mean, for so many of us outside of Montpellier who've seen the team through the years, there's no Montpellier without him, and vice versa. Growing up with him as the coach, what sticks out in your memories?
The first words that came in my mind when we talk about Patrice is the professional, you know. Every day is a challenge. Every day is 100%, 200% on the court, and he give everything for his team and for the club. And I have in my mind this picture. I don't know if you remember it, but when they won the first title in Champions League in Montpellier, there is one picture that Patrice celebrating the last second of the game in 2018 when they won in Cologne. There is more or less the same picture of Patrice celebrating with the players, and in my mind, it's the the perfect image that I want to keep of him, because it was an accomplishment for him. He give everything every day, so it's great to see someone have the result that he hoped, and it's really inspiring too.
This will be your first quarterfinal in the Champions League with the club as a player, and I remember probably one of the earliest memories of watching Montpellier live was a game against Hamburg many years ago, watching it on TV in a bar in Dublin, and seeing your goal, which I think has lived long in the memory, where you cruised over the halfway line, had a shot blocked, and got the rebound. An incredible moment, and I guess it's something people ask you about a lot. But please humor me and tell me what was going through your mind on that occasion.
Yeah, in fact, it was not the first time that I did it, because when I was playing with the second team this year, I was so young, and I played with the second team, and when we were one less with 2 minutes or something, I was playing on the court as a playmaker, started something and go back in my net. It was the beginning of the 7 against 6 play.
Yeah.
and this year, the club have some trouble with some players with the off-court issues. And in this game, during the game against Hamburg, we were, I think, 6 goal behind, I think. And with 2 minutes, and I watched Patrice like, can I go? Can I go? And he moved his head like, yeah, okay, go. Finally go. We will see. And in my mind, I was just like, if he say, yes, you can go, you need to shoot, man. It will be one time in a life that a goalkeeper will play in attack. So I need to shoot. I need to do something. And I try, and then the action, now when I look at it, I'm like, fuck, I'm crazy to have done it. And
yeah.
to be honest with this game, we have to remember that 3 minutes after this goal, I was on the bench because I was not stopping so much ball at the end. But of course, everyone remembers the goal.
Nobody cares about that bit in history. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you were kind of ahead of your time then in playing an extra man in attack when you've got a 2-minute suspension. Who needs to just take the goalkeeper off? He can play in attack.
Exactly.
I want to go back to that a little bit later, because there's you've shown yourself to be a good court player on the beach as well, but I'll ask you about that soon. But that was 2012, 2013, in that Champions League season, and it's kind of been a winding road for you to get back to this level and to get back to Montpellier. You went to Nîmes then afterwards and had 9 seasons there. Was the goal always to come back to Montpellier when the opportunity came? And obviously 9 seasons with Nîmes were fantastic for you if you stayed that long, but maybe not the path you expected when you were that young.
Yeah, at the end, maybe it was not the goal, but I always kept it in my mind. As you said, my years in Nîmes were amazing for me. I grew up so fast. We meet some of my best friends there, and the club and the atmosphere were great. And we involved year after year and play 4 years EHL Cup, and it was great season. And when the opportunity to come back in Montpellier arrived, of course, I didn't think about it so much. It was easy decision to take for me. But in the same times, I would say that I was not in Nîmes to go back in Montpellier,
Right, of course, yeah.
I was living my life, having a great time and a great team there, great friends, great club. But of course, the opportunity of playing Champions League and to this level, and in the same time to play for the title here in France, I've been stronger than the project of Nîmes at the moment. But I will not say that I play Nîmes to come back one day. I played Nîmes. It was great. And when the opportunity came to to go back home in Montpellier, of course I ran too.
And it kind of coincided, you coming back to Montpellier and competing for the title, playing the Champions League, and also in the last 3 years or so breaking into the French national team. I guess you had to be a little bit patient in that regard to get these opportunities in your late 20s. I think that says a lot also about the quality of French goalkeepers, and it's an interesting I guess constellation with French goalkeepers at the moment in the national team, and we're going to see a good example of that in the Champions League on Wednesday with yourself and Charles on one side and Samir on the other side at a club where Vincent Girard was also at the beginning of the season. How much in terms of let's say the battle for goalkeeper positions and the French national team is on your mind on a day-to-day basis, with Paris coming up ever sooner, now less than 100 days away?
Of course, we all think about this summer in part of our mind. To myself, I will say that I just try to be my best every day. I'm a guy that work hard every day and put a lot on the work. And it have been all my life like this. So I will not change anything, because I think my daily routine and training are good and put me where I am today. So I will not change anything. I will try to be my best. Of course, if we have the best result with the club, and if I perform good in the biggest event, like it will be on Wednesday, of course I will show a great image to the coach in national team. But at the end, I'm not the guy who will decide, of course.
Yeah.
So I just need to be in perfect shape and perfect form at the moment, and I will be ready to defend the national team if I have the opportunity, and if I have another role, any kind of role, I will take it with pleasure and push for the team.
And you had a big role in January when you won Euro Gold with the team. You were one of the heroes in the semi-final in particular. Coming in now that it's a few months since that title in January has gone by, are there any moments for that, or any things that stay in your head particularly?
Yeah, of course. To me, it was a tough competition, because at the beginning of the competition, I was starting the game, and then the coach asked me mostly to finish the game and have another role. So it was a little bit challenging, but yeah, of course, this win against Sweden in semi-final, of course, with this amazing goal of Elohim Prandi, have been maybe the greatest memories we will have this year. And to me, it was in the same time one of the biggest moments with this extra time that I on. So yeah, it was really, when we came back in the locker room, we are like shocked, completely shocked. I will not say so happy. I will say shocked about the scenario, and yeah, it's one of the biggest memories. And of course, this final with a tough win on the end of the game, and yeah, first title for me, it was crazy. I will remember it of my life, I think.
Yeah, and the battle emerging between yourselves, France and Denmark in recent years, and it feels like it's something that's going to continue now for years to come, is really incredible. And I think you really showed your mental strength as a team at that moment. Is there something in particular that has really stuck with you in the last few years of being with the French national team that made you realize how special the team can be?
Yeah, of course. We talk about this kind of moment a lot between us to prepare the European Championship, and even the year before for the World Championship. We talk about this big event at the end of the tournament as the biggest moment, and the moment that we need to show that we are this kind of team who is able to win it at the end. And so I think the loss in the final last year were maybe the start of the win of this year.
Right.
And we have another thing is in our mind too. no team in the history have won the European Championship and Olympics in the same year, the two biggest competitions. So in our mind, we really want to write history and be the first team that do it.
That's interesting. 'Cause also with the French national team has almost been famous in previous Olympic years to not give up in January, but to let's say to use it as a stepping stone for the Olympics and then to perform so well. But it was really on your team's mind that you were going to go for the big double to be at 100% for both.
Yeah, I think we have a good mix in our team, like old players that have already won everything and have a lot of experience to give to the youngest player. And in the other hand, players that are some of the best players in the world right now, but that haven't won everything. Okay, now they have won Tokyo, the last Olympics, now European Championship. They missed one world now title. Yeah, I think it's a good mix between experience and the player that are angry about winning everything every time and winning every time when they put the French jersey on their shoulder.
As we were talking about you playing on the court, I hinted at asking you about beach handball because that is another passion in your life, and we have a lot of beach handball fans and players who listen as well. You've played for France in the national team as a left wing as well. I was completely shocked seeing you for the first time. I think it was at the European Championship, playing in the left wing and then going in goal as a bit of a joker for the shootout. Also sharing that national team with your brother Nico, who I guess is in a good position to be playing in Paris as well this summer in the demonstration tournament for France, assuming he's fit and healthy.
Yeah, I hope for him that he will play there, but I don't know if he will have the opportunity. And yeah, at the beginning, I start with the national team of France when the federation asked us to develop these sports that nobody knows in France. So we learned the rules quickly, like 2-3 days, and we start to play in Zagreb at the European Championship. It was a little bit difficult beginning, but we have a lot of pleasure and to be together to learn these sports, to see the atmosphere and all the people around. So yeah, I continue during 3 years, I think. Sometimes in the net, sometimes as a left wing. I think I have to play specialist some days. I've done a little bit of everything, and yeah, I love to play the shootout. It was really my favorite moment in beach handball because I think that I have all the ability of my abilities fits perfectly with this exercise to do some pass, can shoot goal to goal, and then have a lot of mobility and speed to go up and down and play with the player. So yeah, I loved it.
With that in mind and your ability to play in the court, have you ever thought about how high a level you could play in indoor handball as either a playmaker or on the left wing? Because I can see in your eyes you fancy yourself. Let's admit, all goalkeepers think they can play on the court. And I see always Valentin Port in warm-up going in goal, so I think he fancies himself as a goalkeeper as well. But how high do you think you'd be able to play?
I think that we talk about it every day with Val, him as a goalkeeper and me as a player. But we never know this answer. But the only thing I can say is I play with the second team in Montpellier when I was young as a player sometimes because we need some players because a lot of young players going to play. We're going to play with the professional team. So I play a few times in third division in France, and it was I think good performances.
Yeah, acceptable.
Yeah, as a left wing, as a playmaker, I play a little bit everywhere. But to be serious, I don't know, but I'm happy with my career now. I'm happy to play in the net, and mostly happy to try to be the best player of handball I can be. And for this, being a goalkeeper and give to my team with more than save.
Yeah. And on Valentine, he seems like a kind of player who would play in any position if you asked him to. Anyway, he's a real warrior. So a good guy to have on your team, and the whole squad this year from Montpellier seems like that as well. You've got a lot of, you mentioned with the national team, this mixture of the older guys with the experience and then young talent. I see that a lot in Montpellier. What do you think you have to bring out of yourselves over the next couple of weeks to get past Kiel and get to the Final Four?
Yeah, the team is amazing this year, and the atmosphere in the team is crazy. It's like, I think everyone said it, but it's really kind of family this year, and it's so good to work with these guys. And I think now we need to step up, being a killer machine, and win the game anyway, and be little bit more focus on few moments in the game that are so important. And I think that with this, we can beat a lot of teams in Europe and do great stuff. But we need to step up now. We need to have in mind that we need to kill. We need to take everything from the other team and not being just okay with the fact that we're playing good or that we are in good position now in quarterfinal. It's great event. No, we need to want more. We need to have ambition to go to Cologne really and to win there. And I think with this mentality, this team is able to do almost everything.
That's a great mentality to have, and I think perfect for the quarterfinals like that. Have you had a chance to do some homework on Kiel? Anything in particular on their side that has impressed you recently?
Yeah, of course. We work a lot on their team. We were not playing on the final of the French Cup this weekend, so we have few days to prepare this game. And they have played against Berlin yesterday, so
great game.
It was a great game, great intensity. So sometimes it's easier to play every 3 days and to have to keep the rhythm and the pace. And it's a little bit different for us to train during one full week. And it's never easy to have this intensity and to push yourself in this moment of the season and the training. So I hope that we will be fresh and play on it to win this game.
That's a great way to finish it. Rémi, thanks so much for your time and a great chat, and I'll see you in the arena on Wednesday.
Thank you very much. Bye.
So thank you to Rémi. We've heard of his thoughts on the Kiel game. And what are yours, Alex? I fancy that this could be the one surprise of the four if we're looking at seedings. I fancy Montpellier in this one.
It's a really interesting game. I think it's, I said at the top of the podcast that, these are all teams that are getting into top form, except for, I would say, Kiel and Montpellier are two teams who have had disappointing seasons, I would say. Montpellier sitting third in the French league. They just drew with Chambry, who have been a very impressive team this year, but still they've lost points. They're kind of pretty surely out of the Champions League next year, so this may be their only chance to get back in. And on the other side, we have Kiel, who have just stuttered for the whole season. And, despite a good draw against Fix Berlin, still a draw, they had that game where they absolutely threw it away against Hamburg. They got taken, Flensburg took care of them, no problem in the North Derby. And it's a team that just seems a little bit lost, a little bit chaotic. You don't know which player is going to step up for them at any occasion. It's been completely random, from Niklas Ekberg to Erik Johansson to Peckler, once in a while being kind of the point of attack. And I don't think that works as well in a Champions League situation. You kind of need to have the players right there and ready to take up the mantle. But on the other side, they are getting a Montpellier team, which is probably the weakest in this quarterfinal matchup. You say there's a kind of a surprise waiting to happen, and what drives that for you? Is it the fact that Montpellier are just, they have something in them, or is it just you don't believe in Kiel?
Genuinely, a bit of both. I mean, Kiel have had a very good Champions League season for the most part, but not without the odd disaster as well. And it's hard to match that with what they're doing in the Bundesliga, because the Bundesliga campaign has been very inconsistent as well. But then they throw up a performance like they did against Berlin, which, for all intents and purposes was a successful draw for them. Getting a draw away from Berlin nowadays is as good as you're going to get. They were delighted with it as well. You could see it at the end when they managed to keep out the final throw. So they're coming off the back of a success there on Sunday, and Montpellier, as Rémi said, haven't played now in a full week, which he says at this point of the season he would much rather, and I think they would much rather, be playing every 3 days, which is an interesting point. But it has given them a chance to look at the Kiel team a lot. So I think honestly it's maybe driven by the fact that Montpellier are at home in the first leg, because they could really win this tie in the first leg and then just hold on for dear life in the second. I could perfectly imagine in the intimate and crowded and stuffy arena Montpellier, a hot Wednesday night, that Kiel could be all over the place. And we've seen them fall apart where it's not a 2 or 3 goal loss, but an 8 or 9 goal loss. That kind of thing I can imagine happening. And then it doesn't really matter what they do in the second leg. The damage could already be done there. So that's where I see the possible surprise. Also, I say that, I'm also thinking, Kiel at home, also not the best anymore. So I just see a lot of open doors.
Kiel have been very strong at home in the Champions League. So they have won every game except for that disaster against Aalborg, where they got absolutely decimated at home. That was a bit of a freak match, I would say. But otherwise, they've really held their own at home in the Champions League, beating PSG, beating Kielce, really, showing that they are still a top team, which is, it just, there's a lot of variables here, but for me, they still have the quality above and beyond what Montpellier have. There's a scrappiness to Montpellier that we always love, but I think in this case, I do trust Yeeha, and I don't say that often, but to shut down the dangers of Montpellier. I think Brian Monte has been fantastic, but he can just be neutralised, and I think Kiel have the players, the defensive size to neutralise Brian Monte. And then that really is kind of Montpellier's spark. They would have to get an incredible performance of Diego Simone, which is possible, but not something you can bank on. And yeah, kind of you rely on Stas Kuba, who has been really good. But again, I think defensively, Kiel do have the weapons, and if they prepare right to shut down Montpellier, and that's something that for some reason I trust Yeeha on.
I mean, I could totally see that going that way as well. But I think if there was going to be one game that I'm going to throw a spanner in the works there, and I mean in the other 3 games you could possibly imagine it going one way or another without it being the biggest surprise in the world. I think Montpellier winning this over 2 legs would be a bit of a surprise, and I'm going to stick with it. So I think we're going separate ways this one. Mm-hmm. What do you fancy next?
So what about the other 2? What's your big one out of the other 2?
For me, I mean, when we're talking big ones, it has to be PSG against Barca, because it's going to be the end of an era for Nikola Karabatic in the Champions League. Being knocked out against his former club. I can't see this going. I mean, although I said it wouldn't be the biggest surprise in the world, I can't see it going PSG's way. I think, although Barca haven't been in the exact tip-top shape they've been in the last couple of seasons, they do know how to turn it on. They have a culture of that. And I think their goalkeepers are just too good. And Dikemem is just too good. And they're going to beat PSG. Do you have any reason to convince me otherwise?
Seeing how PSG got absolutely dismantled by Nantes in the French Cup final, 31-23, and it was just a demolition from Nantes, tells me that this PSG team have some sort of ceiling. Like they're still a strong team that can beat the likes of Wisla Plock for sure, but they just have a ceiling right now with the players that they have available. We've talked about their limitations at right back, their kind of over reliance on superstardom from Prandi. Really their only option at left back, Karabatic, is a player now. He fills in gaps, but if they need to win, it's the likes of, it's just Luke Steins and Prandi playing together and trying to win. Shipjack on the line, of course. That trio is really impressive when it gets going, but it's like that or nothing for PSG. And PSG love to push the pace. Luke Steins brings it up the court so fast. It's part of their game. They take the quick shots. But on the other side, you just have a team who does that better in Barcelona. And if they do get into this absolute dueling match where it's, one way or the other, I have my money on Dikemem above Prandi.
If it's a foot race, I have my money on Hampus Fana and Alish Gomez. Just, you talk about the speed that Luke Steins will bring. I mean, I can just imagine it being countered anytime they don't score, and twofold by this Barca team. And I hope it's a close one. I say that as I'll be commentating both legs, so I hope it goes down to the wire. And I think in the first leg PSG will do a job. Like they may not win, but they could get a draw or a narrow win and force Barca to do it at home. But then I think they will. So
we haven't seen Barca play since the group stage, which was early March. We're talking almost 2 months. But their last 2 games in the groups, they did lose to Magdeburg by 1 goal and then to Montpellier at home by 3 goals. Is there anything to read into there? Otherwise, there's nothing really to judge their current form on except for Spanish league performances where they've won 7 games in a row and have already sealed the Spanish title.
I prefer their run to PSG's losses to Nantes and Montpellier in recent weeks. I saw the game in Magdeburg live, and that was just an astonishing game. If you remember, Gisli Christiansen won it with the final throw of the match. It was that fine a margin, and I think that probably was almost a successful game in a way for them, even though they lost it. And then the Montpellier game, I think it could just happen at the end of the group phase. Job was done. They were fine. I wouldn't read too much into it, to be honest. And it's a situation that's no different for them this season than it's been for the last 15 years for this club. They have to turn it on when it comes to March or April time, and they prepare for that all season long. They don't peak until now, so I think they'll be fine. I want to hear your thoughts on Aalborg Veszprém, which for me is like the one which could go in so many different ways. This has the potential to be chaos.
I think this is probably the tightest match-up. Just anything can happen. Aalborg right now are in tremendous form, and they have been in Denmark for a while. They've gone into the championship round, have won every game. They look to be sailing through to the Danish championship, but again, not a completely easy feat. They're really hitting stride. But there's something about Aalborg in the Champions League where it almost feels like they don't know how to play it as well anymore, or they don't care about it as much. I don't know, there's something about Aalborg which I can't put my finger on, which like opens up this scenario that, you know, Veszprem come out and are just a dominant team and close out the tie.
It happened 2 years ago, quarter-final, Veszprem at home in the first leg. They won it before it was at half-time. But I think it's a different Aalborg team to then. Their form has been great, as you said, and there's a couple of additions to this team that I think will not allow it to be a walkover in a quarter-final stage, and that is Niklas Landin and Miguel Hansen. Miguel Hansen's final hurrah in the Champions League, just like Karabatic. Yeah, but Veszprem have been top of my pile all since the season has started. Even if results haven't always been perfect, there's just something about them that has really impressed me. And yeah, it's going to be disappointing that one of these teams, a bit like Kielce and Magdeburg, disappointing that one of these teams won't be in Cologne.
Yeah, that's the kind of, that's where we are with the Champions League right now. There is probably, 6 or 7 teams which are all vying for the Champions League win. That's what they have in their plans, and not all of them can get through. Veszprem have just looked very comfortable lately. They looked very comfortable in the playoff round. They've been very solid in the Hungarian league, look like they're going to likely win that, no problem. And they have the players. Again, we've talked about the Remeli-Fabregas duo that just keeps going from strength to strength. Added on top of that, you do have Yahya Omar, who's still he's been a bit par player for them this season because of his injury and the fact that he's moving on. He hasn't really been the leader that he has been in the past for Veszprem, but he is an absolutely outstanding player who can show up in these, really, really vital games. So he's a really good wild card to have. Where on Aalborg's side, are we really relying on Mikkel Hansen here to?
Yes, we are, and that's why I think at the end of
them?
120 minutes, it will be Veszprem to go through.
I find it hard to argue against that. This Veszprem team have been really impressive this season. They've shown a really good maturity. It can always come down to Montpellier not being technically the most adept coach in these circumstances, but that's kind of hard to judge. If that will be the case, I think I'll be keeping an eye out on that, of how Veszprem set up, how they react to the various lineups that Aalborg throw at them, and I think that's the Achilles heel there, which is probably harsh to say, but from a player perspective, Veszprem really have a really great flow. I think their backcourt just works so well with Eldera, Remeli, Casado, Omar, all kind of Kosaratov, who's been a little bit disappointing, but again, they have so much weapons and they interchange so well. When they play these especially their left side of the backcourt really rotates and plays so well, where out of all those players that I mentioned, it's so unlikely that all of them have a bad game. A couple of them are going to stand out, and it might be Kantamaya, who just scores 4 standing shots between the minutes of 40 and 45, and then that's a game won. They just have the players for that, and it's a team I do want to see progress.
But that Achilles heel you mentioned, and the fact that there is some kind of possibility that everyone won't deliver, I think makes this one particularly tasty. But I think both of us in the end going for Veszprem there. We'll call it a day for now. Alex, thank you so much for joining, and thanks again to Rémi Desbonnet for the chat earlier. We'll be back later in the week with the women's quarter-final preview and a morning club as well. But until then, from all of us here at the Handball Hour, it's goodbye.